Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer here at this extremely hot, sweltering day in Nashville, kind of in DC. Well, I guess people don't care where I live at the current moment. Pharmaceutical Soccer, of course, I'm here with Clay Trainum, Valer Shabilla. We are back after a long break in MLS season. Well, there was still Leagues Cup going on, but of course we were not a part of it. But we had a match over the weekend, which was very nice. I'm sure Clay and Valera are both a part of that in some way, shape, or form. Uh, yeah. What's up, y'all? How's your weekends?
That was a really funny way to phrase that. Yes, I guess we were both part of it. Not the match. We didn't play, to my understanding. I
Although if we did play, we probably would have made some of the same mistakes that the professional players made.
Probably worse. But yeah. I mean, especially that second goal. I think I could. I am definitely capable. Not only capable, am I capable? I've done that mistake before. So
I do
you know,
believe I have witnessed Valera make that mistake
I,
as well. That is correct.
yes, I am capable of doing that. I am fully aware of that. No, I mean, look, it felt. I don't know if it felt good, but it felt something to be back. I mean, it was 3 weeks of no soccer, which I thought it was a break we all needed, whether it's fan media, Tennessee, and I think there was just a lot of excitement for this one that well, not a lot, but a good amount of excitement that just wasn't there in maybe previous home games because BJ Callaghan wasn't involved, right? And I think there's always an excitement with a new face and everything like that. So that was kind of the exciting part. The less exciting part was that you looked at the injury list and you looked at everything surrounding this team on the pitch, and you're just like, huh, is this the turning point? Spoiler alert, it was not.
Yeah, we'll talk about the game more at length later, but I mean, it's back to this time of the season for me. So as I was sitting there watching a team I support abroad get absolutely smoked 4-0, I was sitting there like, cool, cool. Can't wait to watch this later
It
today
it
again.
was really
And
fun for like I was thinking about that when I saw the Tottenham Everton score line. I'm like, well, Clay predicted this last week, so this is great.
yeah, and so I will say this. I will say this, and we'll talk more about the game later. I had more fun watching Nashville try to attack this week than I'd had in a long time. And although the mistakes were there, it was actually an entertaining game to watch in terms of that. And so that was nice because I don't know that I've felt excited about Nashville with the ball in quite a while. So I will take some solace in that. Unfortunately, there's mostly bad news on that front. So as for the rest of the weekend, it was cool, whatever. It was hot. I watched Everton lose, you know, pretty pretty easy normal weekend, I guess.
I
Yeah, it was
will.
what?
Oh, I was just gonna say I will not, I guess, talk about my Premier League team again and all the wins and stuff that we are going through right now. But I did do yard work with my girlfriend this Sunday, and it hurts, I will say. And I generally would not recommend it to most people. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't understand how plants work.
We very happily hire people to do our yard work because I am not getting
So
outside.
I used to hire people, and I don't know. This summer, I was just like, I can take it on. I don't think I can, y'all. I don't think it's for me, but I will. I was persistent. It's looking better. I think there might be a little bit of potential. It's like, I'm in that like weird like CJ Sapong era of like, this could be really something, but what we have right now is pretty good, and I don't know if it's gonna turn out like CJ Spong, where like it doesn't really pan out to anything great, or it's just gonna
Swear
be
to
good.
God, if
That's
we
it.
continue this conversation.
I just want to point out that I also went to an MTSU volleyball match and had a great time. And my wife and I did a tour, like a historic Nashville tour, and we were the youngest people there by like 1,000 years. And as we went outside of this house in Sevier Park, all of these mostly old people, and then me and Mary someone was playing at one of the picnic shelters juvenile songs, full blast, to the point where you couldn't hear the tour guide. And it was amazing. And I think that should happen more often.
I had a good weekend as well. I watched a decent amount of soccer. I got to watch my team win too, which is very nice. Yay. Well, not Nashville, of course. Well, I actually got to watch another team of mine beat Arsenal. So it was a good weekend as there was a Chelsea Arsenal women's international friendly at Audi Field that I did go to, a doubleheader with the Spirit and uh yeah, that international friendly, which yeah, that was a game.
We have somehow managed to go 6 minutes without addressing the elephant in the room about the Nashville SC game. So we're gonna go ahead and just get that out of the way right now. That was intentional, by the way, because none of us really want to talk about it. But about a half an hour into the game on Saturday night, Patrick Yazbek was subbed out after an apparent incident involving abusive language on the field. And we can't really speak to what he said because none of us really know. And anybody out there who's telling you that they know what he said, chances are they do not. So some rumors have run wild over the weekend that don't really pass the smell test for me, as for what it was said. And so we're not going to get into what he said, other than probably shouldn't have said it, and maybe Nashville doesn't lose that game if he doesn't say it. So that's we don't know any more than that, and nobody else really does either.
Yeah, and like, here's the thing: if anybody, whatever word or thing he said, if you heard it or you think you heard it or someone's telling you they heard it, I would love to talk to this person. So far all I've seen is these rumors out there that don't have any sources, don't have any evidence, don't have any backing of any sort, and people are like running wild with it. People are freaking out. They're having outrage about it, and it's like, guys, I would love to be outraged too. I would love to tell you how this incident is the reason soccer is not big in America. Whatever. Like, I've seen some wild things out there, and please, I'm begging you, before you just get outraged, just check where this information is coming from, because we don't know, like Clay said. And if you do know, and you have a very valid source of this information, good on you. Tell me where this source is first and foremost, and then maybe you can get outraged. But like, everything I see is just like based on nothing.
Yeah, and you'll get credited too. Like Valera will credit you if it's correct and it makes
Yes.
sense and all of that stuff. But I guarantee you, it's probably not. And Valera, I was talking to you about this last night. A couple of things. One, it's got to be really hard to be like an actual official reporter now, because you probably got 500 texts from people asking you either what it was and if all the rumors are true and stuff like that. Probably on this show, it definitely happened as well. But I also think something that you did bring up as well is probably what is going to happen in this scenario, where MLS is going to launch an investigation. It's going to take a couple weeks. They're going to get every camera angle, every source, every person that was on the field, not people just in the stands that thought they heard something be said, and then go from there. And it's either he said something extremely terrible where he's gone for the entire season and will be sold at the end of the year, or probably more likely he's just going to get fined and it's going to be gone.
And to be completely fair, there's only been one instant where an incident like that happened in recent MLS where the player was sold, and that was Taxi Fuentes with DC United, and he did come back to DC and trained, and so it wasn't just that necessarily. In the past, there's been a few incidents in MLS and USL where a player is issued training, and there's a fine or maybe a game or two suspension. The nature of these things is that we're probably not going to know exactly what he said, and maybe something will leak here or there. Maybe there will be more clarification from Yazbek or Nashville or Austin, but chances are we're never going to know what he said, and we're just going to know the results of this investigation. look, I'm not here to defend this process or anything of that sort. That is currently the process. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. I agree. It's fine. It needs to be addressed in a better way. However, that is the process right now. And Nashville SC, Austin FC, and I'm pretty sure the players and the coaches are not allowed to speak on this until the investigation is over. If they do speak on it, I think it would hurt the investigation that's ongoing.
Yeah, it is one of those weird things though, because nobody could really figure out what was going on. We sort of surmised from our standpoint in the second level on the other side of the field that it probably had to do with something that he said, and I texted Valaire, and Valaire had just as much as idea as I did in the press box,
Yeah.
but it kind of come to the same conclusion. I do find I would like to see in a statement that the team puts out the process outlined. Like, my understanding, and I don't know if this is the actual protocol or not, is if the referee didn't hear it, a sub is like the suggested resolution, because it's weird to be removed from the game for the basis of something that you said, but it not be a yellow or a red card and it just be a straight sub out. So the one thing I would say is I would like for that to be an explained, like, when NSC puts out a statement, this is what happened. This is the protocol that the league has for these sorts of situations with the ref, because clearly the referee didn't hear it. Otherwise, he would have given a card.
Correct. And in USL, I think this was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. What happened was that the opposition requested that the player be subbed out. Otherwise, they would have walked out. I'm not saying that's what Austin did. I don't know what Austin did. I'm just saying that's what happened in USL in the past, where that was kind of the accepted move to move forward, remove the player, and we'll keep playing.
That was the request of the very famous, like, San Diego loyal Landon Donovan thing. That was the request they made of Phoenix. So I'm sure that might be where that policy came from in USL. So I don't know. It was just an interesting thing that I wish we would have a little bit more resolution on, even if we don't know what it was said. But I just wanted to reiterate, and the guys on here wanted to reiterate as well, that no matter what Twitter rumors are, we don't actually know what was said. And so maybe don't run with them.
And guys, I definitely just checked with my sources as well. There is no official, source or anything going on if what was said. I did check my sources as well. It's not there. So,
for those that are new to the show, when Steven says his sources, he means google.com.
That is correct.
Or Yahoo or Bing or whatever.
Occasionally ask
Bing, I'm not a monster, Valaire. Like, I can only
I said Yahoo before that. You didn't comment. I was like,
it's like using that would be like using the
web crawler, Alta Vista.
There you go.
Ask Jeeves.
Now you're getting too old for me, Clay.
I suppose I am canonically the oldest person on this show. So,
but we do have a match to talk about, so we're definitely going to do that. But before we do, I know we do have a few shout outs and stuff that we do want to give. Clay, we got shout outs?
Just one. Obviously, like we say all the time, if you listen to the show and you see us at a game or you see us out, make sure you let us know that you're listening. It means a lot to us. Sometimes we feel like we're talking into the void. And so seeing actual human beings say that they listen to the show is always something that we all appreciate. So shout out to Hunter, who came up. He actually went to a rhythm game because of this show. And then he ran into me at Geodis Park the other day. So that was really kind. And so shout out to everyone who listens. And also, if you want to do a little bit more than just listen, please check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/farmersoccer. And, go give us a review on Apple Podcasts, by the way. We haven't had one in a while. If you go give us a 5-star review, we will read that review on here. And if it is criticizing one of our teams, we will make the person who follows that team read that review on here. So please go there. If you want to talk bad about Chelsea, we're going to make Steven read you talking bad about Chelsea on here. And same with Arsenal. And don't really worry about Everton. Like, I talk bad about Everton enough, so you don't really need to add to that on my end.
The gods have talked enough smack about Everton. It's fine. Don't need to talk about Everton. We'll just leave that for Clay's perspective. One other thing I would like to bring up as well. We are trying to get together our patience and our forces to get us into the Nashville End of Year Awards, the Nashville scene. So if you do want to vote for Pharmaceutical Soccer for best sports podcast or sports show in Nashville, that would do us just that would be so amazing. Like that would be so much fun for us to be a part of. Go write us in, vote for us. We would love to be a part of that at the end of the year. I know that I think the funniest part about this, by the way, Clay, is I think that party last year, because they have a party for everybody that's nominated and all that type of stuff, is at Geodis Park. So that would be hilarious if we did have that ability to be there. So, y'all, please go vote for that. Vote for Pharmaceutical Soccer. That would be amazing. Yeah, that'd be great. So we're going to get into the match, though, talk about all of the match against Austin. We're going to do that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And as Clay mentioned in the first segment, we do have a Patreon as well. Would love to have you be a part of that. $5 a month really does help us continue doing this show. We love doing it for you. So yeah, that's why we mention that Patreon every week. So please, if you haven't become a Patreon member yet, we'll give you a shout out. Would love to have you. Also, pharmasoccer.com. So make sure you check that out as well. Nashville goes down at home 2-0 to Austin. Goals by John Gallagher and believe it's their new signing, Bukhari, right? It's their new DP signing that did finally get that late goal at the end for Austin to get the 2-0 win. Clay, I like how you kind of organized this because I think there's a lot to take from this match specifically. You talked about a lot that, even though that it was a loss for Nashville, and I think there's a lot of it was still very entertaining, and there was still a lot to take away from it. So I do think let's be the positive people that we are and start with what we liked when it comes to Nashville SC on Saturday. Like, what are like some of the things that you specifically thought, we're a lot different. We're nice to see good things from Nashville, even though we did lose.
So the thing that stuck out to me were things that we've seen in bits and pieces in the previous two games under BJ Callaghan. This is like the most, obviously I'm going to be focusing on the offense here because defensively it was two terrible mistakes. But offensively, like the things that we saw, it was more consistent motions, activities, passes, like it was more consistently gelled and cohesive, and it really felt like the team knew what it was doing going forward, which sounds like the lowest possible bar to clear, but it's a bar that Nashville hasn't cleared very often this season. And I mean, that starts with, they got a penalty that should have been clear as day, by the way. I think they had the
longest and dumbest VAR check I've experienced.
I have always thought the VAR makes officials worse because they feel like they can depend on instant replay, so they double check themselves on very clear, obvious things like that penalty. But that's the type of penalty that Nashville earns when it's playing well. Like they slip by someone, the guy they've earned that exact penalty, a bunch of times over the years.
Well, and that build-up play was absolutely phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
From
there were several plays that were great build-up plays that just didn't come quite off. And we haven't seen that very often. So just overall, the attack just felt way more cohesive. I mean, it's going to look better when you're chasing a game, but it looked good before that was the case. And so I think they finished with something around 60% possession. I'm sure the XG numbers, depending on your source, was right around 2. Obviously, more than half of that is from a penalty miss. But like, it just looked like a team that knew how to play around each other better. And a main reason for that, like a pretty big reason for that, is Mukhtar. Like the last couple times that we've come on here talking about Mukhtar, it's like he's getting in space, attacking the goal at pace, opening up the game for other players. Like that is what we need from him in order for Nashville to be a good team. And he did a lot of that in this game. Another key component of that, comment notwithstanding, was Patrick Yazbek came in and played pretty fantastic for a half an hour before his day ended. And so like they started to like gel a lot more, and they look like a team that's basically been practicing nonstop for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of showcases what Clay's talking about is the amount of entries to the penalty box we saw from Nashville. I have been looking for the numbers that I looked up earlier, and I can't find them, so I don't remember what those numbers are. However, I will tell you they are higher than they used to be. I think to create those chances, you just have to be a better team, right? And I think there's improvements and there are better things happening, even when you take the Mazatlan game to New England and New England to this one. If we were to actually think about it, this is more so preseason for BJ Callaghan, right? So I think if you think about it that way, then you start to realize maybe maybe it's just going to take some time, and that's what we have been able to. That's what we've been saying from the moment he took over. That said, these little improvements should have led to a couple more goals. I think. Like so to answer your question, Clay, MLS has the XG at 2.5. Now penalty is about one out of that, but still 1.5 is a huge improvement for this team. Trust me when I tell you that. And Brad Stuver post shot expected goals. So once the shot was taken, how likely is that to go in? Was 2.0, including the penalty, of course. And I think he had an exceptional game for Austin, and I thought he did really well with the penalty save and overall. So that's something to keep in mind, that Austin was also playing well defensively.
And I just want to another thing that really stood out in this game, and this is something that I didn't mention there, and this kind of runs counter to the whole like attack and generating shots, is Nashville actually looked really good on set pieces. Now we all have our misgivings about always going near post on the corner, which Hani seems to do every time he takes a corner. But they earned a lot of free kicks, more so than they normally do in a game, and a lot of free kicks in a dangerous area. I don't know the last time Hani had a shot on target from a free kick, and he did in this game. And he would probably love another shot at it. I'm sure he'd love another shot at this penalty, but like that's something that we haven't seen from Hani Mukhtar in like a year or two. When's the last time he scored a free kick? It's been a while where that was kind of something that he did regularly in previous years. And so I really liked that when they got into dangerous areas, they were dangerous to the point where they were drawing fouls in spots that Nashville can score from. And so they got a lot of corners, they got a lot of free kicks on the attacking third. These are things that add up when you have the ball a little bit more too, of course. So just I really, really liked a lot of what I saw on the attack, but everything else.
Yeah, I do hope specifically that Hani Mukhtar does take this match from his own personal perspective as a positive instead of, being able, like, obviously missing the penalty is tough, but I mean, I do believe the penalty itself wasn't a bad penalty. It was just a terrific save by Patrick Stuver. Like, it had pace on it, it had everything. It was a really good save. But Hani was getting these opportunities, which is, I think, Hani needed more than anything else, is to get those opportunities. Obviously, you want to put the ball in the back of the net, but it's been a while since we've seen Hani kind of have this game where he has been on the ball in places that could be very dangerous for Nashville, for sure. So I'm with you there. But yeah, like you said, there was a few things, Clay, that just did not work out for Nashville specifically, which is why Nashville did end up taking the 2-0 loss. And then again, the ball just did not go in the back of the net.
Yeah, I just to add one more thing on that. I mean, Nashville spent 41% of the ball in Austin's half, or in the final third, I should say, and 35% was in the middle, and only was the ball in Nashville's third 24% of the time in that match, and that is probably the biggest improvement you can give anybody, right? And when we're talking about these marginal things, that's a big part of it. Now, the next step, going off what Steven was saying, you have to finish those opportunities. Surich had one. Mukhtar had a golden one, obviously, with the penalty. But there were so many opportunities that came about that were just lacking in finishing. And that is almost to be expected from a team who has lost 7 or 9 games in a row if you count League's Cup. I know technically it was a draw against New England. Thank you, Clay. I know I saw you moving your head. It's a loss in my book. They lost in penalties, and they got out of the League's Cup. So I don't think anybody's mad at me for calling it a loss. Well, BJ Callaghan would be. He corrected Ben actually on a press conference. But all that said, I think when a team is down bad like that, it's gonna be harder for them to have that confidence to score the goals and keep going with it. Now, I think the drive is there, and I think now the chances are there to where the drive was there under Roomba Montali the last 2, 3, 4, 5 games, but the chances just weren't being created. I mean, Nashville SC were ending games with like 0.5 and 0.2, and maybe they'll reach 1 XG and they won't score any of it, to where now we're seeing them do a lot more and create in a lot of different ways. I do think we can't take away from how much the substitution impacted that game of Patrick Yazbek 30 minutes in. We already talked about what that was, but taking Patrick Yazbek out and looking at the bench, not having Anibal Godoy for yellow card suspension, not having obviously Sean Davis for injury purposes, not having Drew Yearwood for injury purposes, that changes a lot of what this team could do in the midfield. Having to put Alex Muyl in midfield, which I thought Alex Muyl had a great game for Nashville SC. I really thought he looked really good on the wing, and then later on looked good in midfield. That said, taking Schaffelberg from the right, putting him on the left, bringing Alex Muyl back to the midfield, putting Perez in on the right wing. That's 3 changes right there in the 30th minute. A time where very rarely you see soccer teams making changes. I just don't think we can kind of overlook that on what it did to the team, let alone the mental aspect of what they just experienced with the Yazbek thing. They're probably frustrated. They probably want to keep going. And you could see it as soon as that play reset. Austin scored twice, technically. One of them just was called off for the foul, and the other one counted. Because Nashville SC kind of lapsed in concentration a little bit because of what had happened.
I do think it is important to note, and I think that this is something to, regardless of what happens with Yazbek, it is worth noting that when Perez came in, he was probably the man of the match. Like, he came in off the bench cold and was without a doubt one of the most influential players in the game for either team. He created a couple chances kind of out of nothing. One of them where basically he picks it up, in his own third, and it ends up being a really good chance for Nashville. I believe that was in the second half. And so, like, Perez is a very, very interesting guy to think about going forward. He's an interesting guy to think about. All right, so how do these pieces fit together when Nashville has its first choices available? Because obviously they have the option to buy Perez at the end of this loan, which, if he plays anything like he did against Austin, I think is a foregone conclusion that he will be joining Nashville. It might be anyway, but I think certainly if he plays like that, it will be a foregone conclusion.
They can trigger that option at any point. They don't have to wait till the end of the season or anything like that. And if I was Nashville, I'd trigger it today, honestly. I think what Nashville is giving the Galaxy on that deal is very minimal to the build of this team. And having a player like Perez in your system, even if it doesn't pan out, you need him for this stretch, if anything. And I think he has potential to definitely pan out. Young player, really dynamic. He's different than Schaffelberg, where Schaffelberg does the run in behind and uses his speed a lot. Perez wants the ball on his feet a little bit more. He would do a run every now and again, but if you saw how those 2 wingers were used yesterday, not even yesterday, Saturday, Perez is more so on his feet. He takes the ball, turns it forward, and immediately goes onto players and takes them on. And I think that is something Nashville SC have missed since Randall Leal. And we saw a little bit from Tyler Boyd, to be honest. But from the wing position, we haven't seen Nashville SC do that. Because when Jacob Schaffelberg is doing it, Jacob Schaffelberg is not doing that. He's not receiving the ball back there. He's receiving the ball way higher up on the pitch and trying to create something. So it's a different dynamic. It offers Nashville SC a different way of playing. And I think they need to trigger that option as soon as possible.
Well, like we said, there was definitely a decent amount of great things that did happen, but like you said, it was still a loss. We have noticed like the mistakes specifically from Nashville SC, even through this stretch of when we've been bad, have really just crushed us as a team. Like they really have, and I think Saturday is the biggest apparent that that's something that needs to be fixed. So, from your guys' perspective, from a defensive perspective, how are those mistakes fixed?
Well, there are multiple ways. The first thing you need to accept is that in the way that Nashville SC is playing currently, they're going to be more vulnerable defensively. And that is just something to accept. That is a risk, a calculated risk that BJ Callaghan is taking. There's nothing wrong with it. You take a risk every time you set up your team in a different way or different shape. That's the first thing. Nashville SC is going to concede chances. How do you not turn those chances into goals is what Nashville needs to focus on. And I really don't think they need to change anything in terms of how they are set up tactically. It's a matter of getting used to each other. It's a matter of knowing exactly what BJ Callahan's asking them to do. Go and watch my film Friday if you haven't yet from last week. And it kind of explains how defensively they are set up, compactness, and it, I think if Nashville SC were actually implementing what BJ Callahan wanted from them, that first goal wouldn't go in. That first goal, he wouldn't even have that chance. But unfortunately, between Shaq Moore and Walker Zimmerman, there's a little bit of a space. And then unfortunately, Anunga gets beat really easily on the ball. And all of a sudden you have a dangerous chance. This is going to be a long process of the tactics are going to stay the same. I really doubt BJ Callahan is going to move the tactics. I think we might see different personnel. And I think that's going to be the biggest differentiator is whether or not you can cut it in these new tactics as an NSC player.
The big thing for me, and the reason that we've probably seen these types of mistakes going on all season, no matter who's been the coach, is because the team hasn't been the same week in and week out. These are people that don't play with each other every game, which is not something that Nashville has really dealt with for an extended amount of time at any point, in the last several years. But that midfield is different every single game. The back four is different every single game. It's starting to get solidified more now that Walker Zimmerman's back, of course. But there hasn't been consistency in both the midfield and the back four in quite a while with this team. And if you have players that you're depending on defensively to not make mistakes, one of the key things is familiarity and understanding, where people are supposed to be, where they're going to be. And that's really the frustrating part, for a team that has largely been a veteran team that makes these mistakes. It is they're the ones largely making the mistakes. So that's the upsetting part. But honestly, I think just getting not even necessarily a first choice, but the first maybe 14, 15 guys that you can play, that you're planning on playing throughout the season, playing every week in and week out together, that will help eliminate a lot of mistakes.
One of the players that we did see consistently kind of in this process was Jack Mayer. And this is a player that was a consistent starter for us in the back line who it seems to have taken a back seat, not only in Gary Smith's system from the beginning of the season, now in BJ Callahan's system, kind of starting. What is next for Jack Mayer? Touting to be our strong center back for years to come is kind of been put in the back seat.
Yeah, I think Jack Miller was looked at as this young player who came in and made a position his own, right? He was not getting paid a whole lot necessarily, but he was playing at an all-star level. And I think it's kind of it's normal for a young player to go through these ebbs and flows within their development. And for a center back position, I know he's not the youngest guy. He's 24 years old. So he's also not the oldest guy by any stretch of the imagination. But for center back, that's pretty young. You don't see a lot of 24-year-old, 23-year-old center. And when he broke into the team at 21, 22, definitely you don't see that. So I think it's a normal ebbs and flow within his development. That said, it's going to need for Nashville SC to continue to sort of work with him. He's going to need to step up his game, and he needs to come back even stronger because they did pay him a lot of money. They are paying him a lot of money now, and he needs to respond to that.
I think that this is really, these next several games are very, very important for him if his career in Nashville is going to continue at his wages. they brought in Lucas McNaughton last year, and very quickly Lucas, not fully, but Lucas grabbed a pretty firm hold of that other starting center back spot for chunks of the season. And now you've got Bauer, who is ostensibly your fourth string center back, playing over you in the first game back after a new coach comes in. That's a really worrisome sign for Jack Mayer's future in Nashville. And he's got to get that figured out because, he is on high wages, but he's also on high wages. And one of the guys that already took his job last year is going to be coming back from injury at some point. And so it's a real gut check time for Jack. I think he's a really good player. I think the potential he offers is higher than the potential of the other guys, but there are a lot of guys who never actually reach the potential that's available there. And so you kind of hope that Jack can kind of push through a tough spell, which happens to everyone. Like this happens to a lot of players. It's not necessarily like an indictment upon him in this exact moment. This is a tough spell that happens to a lot of players, but he needs to push through it and find his way back into the team. Otherwise, he may be playing for a different team this time next year.
Well, just like Nash, it's been 3 weeks since we've covered a match. Y'all, I think we did pretty good. What do y'all think?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I mean, we're getting pretty good at covering losses at home.
Personally, I think I'm always great and good, and I don't know. That's how I look at it. I'm very humble too.
All right. Well, we did have a Leagues Cup final as well as some huge improvements that are going down in Huntsville. And we'll talk about that next right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer again on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, our Patreon. Would love to have you join that for $5 a month. And of course, we have a website, pharmasoccer.com. Check us out there. And as Clay mentioned in the first segment, give us a review on your podcast app. We'll make sure that we read it out loud here. It's always a good time. Some other things to discuss in terms of just soccer news here in Nashville and I think MLS in general per se. Looking at potential MLS final ahead of time for the final of the Leagues Cup. Did go Columbus's way. Columbus did beat LAFC in the Leagues Cup final. Columbus is really good. I don't know if that's hard to believe or not, but Columbus is really good.
I don't know if anybody has seen any of the last year of MLS and is unsure whether or not Columbus is good. I think if they aren't the best MLS team in history, they have to be in the top 3, and that's being generous. I think the soccer they play, the way they play, all the finals. This is the 3rd final in 9 months, dude. It's insane. And they've won 2 of those. The only reason they didn't win the Champions League or the Champions Cup is because there was a diarrhea situation going on that maybe another team inflicted on them. Who knows? But that's the only reason.
I wouldn't say it's the only reason, but it is a notable reason.
I would say they would have won. Was that?
Wasn't it 12 players? It wasn't a small poop situation. It was a big situation.
It
right,
was
I'm just saying,
significant.
assuming that they're going to win is just
the way they were playing.
Given Champions Cup.
Won. Yes. Okay. Sure. I just think they are really good. And I think honestly the biggest testament to Columbus is Wilfred Nancy. Of course, we're going to talk about him, but I think that their ability to recycle 1 or 2 players each window within their starting lineup without dropping anything in form. Matter of fact, getting better. So not only testament to, and by the way, also their front office. Their front office has been changing as well, and they're still good. So when you get front office changes and player personnel changes, and you're still good, then that's just a good organization altogether. And when you look just the last couple big transfers, I mean, Lucas Zelarayan got transferred from Columbus. They transfer him out. They bring in Diego Rossi immediately. Diego Rossi doesn't work out immediately, but they win MLS Cup, and now he's a superstar. Aiden Morris just got transferred. He's an everyday starter in every single team in MLS. Aiden Morris. He just went to Middlesbrough, and he's doing well in Middlesbrough, and they don't look like they even miss him. I mean, you saw how they played. So I think when you're talking about the starting lineup, Julian Gressel was on this team last year. Like, do you know what I mean? Like Julian Gressel was there, and he was benched because some young player they traded from Toronto just was better than him because Wilfred Nancy worked with him. Like these are the things that happen in Columbus that just aren't happening anywhere else in MLS. It's one thing when you look at Miami and they go and buy that next big star, or LAFC, or even LA Galaxy, where they are buying maybe not the biggest names, but definitely expensive, good players. Columbus is also making players. And I think the combination of all of that and Wilfred Nancy just being one of the best, greatest MLS managers is just really working for them. And I don't know. I'd be shocked if they didn't at least win, at least compete for in the playoffs.
It definitely looks like we have some improvements as well in Huntsville, as they have now won 3 matches in a row, which is really good to see. A lot of it seems to be because of the new coach that has been a part of the team. Looks like playoffs might be a little bit difficult, but still good improvements happening down in Huntsville.
That is Chris O'Neill, who came from the Inter Miami U17s to take over Huntsville. Not to be confused with Gary O'Neill, who coaches the Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Or Shaquille O'Neal, who played
Or
basketball for a long time.
Or
He
Shane
probably
O'Neill,
coached.
who was a part of Colorado Rapids for a while and Seattle Sounders for a little bit as a center back. Not Shane O'Neill as well.
Okay, anybody else? I had a former coworker with the last name O'Neill. I'm not gonna say her name,
I
but
mean, Jermaine O'Neal was also a pretty good basketball player.
all right, dudes, we'll just sit here and name O'Neill soccer players. Let's move on.
He doesn't play really good at the Palace of Auburn Hills, but he's still
No,
a good a good basketball player.
I will say, on the Huntsville topic, I think we need to mention Ruben Pages had an incredible game this last one. Goal and an assist and looked really good. Go watch his goal and assist because they were really nice. And he was injured earlier in the year, but since coming back, he's been showing his quality. There's a clear talent there that Nashville SC has already signed.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I said it on this show after I went down to Huntsville earlier this year. Like Ajago at times looked like a man among boys playing in Huntsville, and the people in Huntsville were more excited about Woven's Pasius than they were Ajago. So like they're pretty excited about what he could possibly do in Nashville next year.
And last thing, Ajago's already taken an international spot. Wubin as well as Jordan Knight, who did get involved in the Leagues Cup, both of them are Canadian, and if they were to play in MLS, they would need an international spot. So I don't think we'll see them this season for Nashville SC necessarily, but I would be shocked if we don't see them at least for the Cup games or something like that next season, as they look really good. There are a couple other Huntsville players who are kind of coming onto their own a little bit. I think we need to mention the academy kid who scored in his first minute of professional soccer. His name is escaping me. So please, if somebody else has it,
Tropicano or I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. Something Tropicano.
Yes.
Played for Brentwood High School.
Yeah, so he did get a chance with the NSC Academy of the GA Cup and scored a couple goals. So he's been a high performer at his age, and getting a chance like this and scoring the winner immediately like that is just an incredible story for him. So obviously, I think he's going to get more opportunities as time goes on. Also, Adam Sipic scored, so that's important.
Yeah, and just real quick on this, Pasius is already on a Nashville contract. My hope is that's a helpful way of maybe making it easier to clear a green card of residency, so you don't even have to worry about the international slot this time next year. But Nashville will be playing a friendly against Huntsville, and given the last few weeks, I feel it could be a very interesting game when they play each other in September.
Have they said how they're going to broadcast, if they're going to broadcast the game?
I don't know. I just know it's the.
I would ask you that specifically, Valera. That would be a question I'd ask.
I haven't paid attention to it.
Theme name, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just got the email about it, and I was like, oh, I saw the date and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to make it, and just like didn't think about it again until what Clay just said. So there you go. Now I know it's happening.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name of it. It's got like some fun like space name, space related.
People online always accuse me of um not knowing what I'm doing. So I guess this is a proof that
Belair,
I mean,
Belair just keeps
going.
getting attacked in these
it is
national streets.
wild that of the three people on this show, Valera is the one that gets accused when like Steven's right there.
Well, Clay, why don't you give us the college soccer update here in Nashville as well? We cover all soccer here, not just Nashville SC.
Yeah, in the over the summer we were kind of keeping you abreast of what was going on with the amateur leagues in Nashville, and given that a local college soccer team had two top 10 picks in the MLS draft earlier this year, I think it's worth kind of keeping in mind what's going on. Everyone has started playing and the regular seasons are underway. Lipscomb on the men's side, they are 1-0 on the season. They won 2-0 at Memphis. Should note, or 2-1 at Memphis, I believe. Should also note that Memphis lost 3-0 to the University of Evansville. Go Aces. Um, and Belmont men are now 1-0-1 this year, drawing against Georgia State and winning 3-0 against Evansville's own University of Southern Indiana. They both are busy going up this week. Lipscomb will be going to San Diego to play two San Diego schools, and then Belmont will be hosting Northern Kentucky before heading down to Florida Atlantic. Now, the women's side, a few more women's teams going. Lipscomb women lost 3-0 to UT, but they're playing Belmont on Thursday and Troy away. Belmont women had a bit of a rough start this year. They're 1-2 on the year, and they lost 5-0 to Vandy. Vandy, of course, has typically been the class of the area on the women's side. They're 2-0-1 after big wins over Belmont and St. Mary's. On Friday, they will play Columbia, and you could win a record player if you go to that Vandy game on Friday night. And then we don't really need to talk about MTSU, but just know that they won this weekend.
Also, just an FYI, they're calling it the Space Cowboy match. The Space Cowboy match is what the Huntsville match is called. So just wanted to look that up for everybody. But Nashville does have another match this weekend against Orlando. This is an away match in Orlando. Look, we're still, even though we are tied for last place in the Eastern Conference with teams that are bad. We are still 2 points away from a playoff position, and we could do some work against Orlando.
Yeah, I do not like how many teams make the playoffs in MLS, but for Nashville's sake, it's it's up for grabs. I mean, one win can make you all of a sudden in the playoffs. Two wins, especially, will definitely get you in. Orlando is not as good this year as they were last year, and I think it's the results kind of show that, but they do have Duncan McGuire. He just signed an extension, so he is staying, and he has been very good for them, including against Nashville SC, of course. This is another Oscar Pereira Orlando team that Nashville's playing away from home, which these matches have been the sort of biggest fights you've seen and the biggest poop housery out there. So there's going to be a lot of that going on. I'm sure this match as well. Orlando did get smacked by SKC 3-0 just this past weekend. So that's something that I think very few people expected. They'll be back at home. They'll be trying to make it right, of course. So I'm excited to see what could happen there. But I think it's like an earlier match too. Oh, no, it's gonna be early for me because I'm gonna be in San Diego. That's not for everybody else, is at 6:30 instead of 7:30, I guess. But anyway, all that said.
You're gonna go to Lipscomb soccer matches in San Diego?
Yeah, definitely not for my wedding, for a cousin's wedding, not my wedding. Jesus.
I was like, wow.
Whoa! Blair was about to hard launch something there extremely quickly.
No,
My God.
Oh, my cousin is getting married in San Diego, and I'll be there. And I guess I'll check out when the Lipscomb players are playing and when the Lipscomb teams are playing. Maybe I can catch a game.
Valera soon to join me at Loudoun United after that launch specifically. Good times. Anyways, why don't we just give predictions for this Orlando match and plugs and all that fun type stuff?
I don't know, man. What do you, Clay? You go first. I'll think about it.
Check out National Soccer Archive, nationalsoccerarchive.com. Follow me at Clay Lasol on Instagram and Twitter. And I have no idea. I feel like Nashville's due to score a goal. So I'm going to go ahead and go. They haven't scored multiple goals at home since June. And I just feel like we didn't mention that earlier, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. They've only scored 2 goals once since like May. So I'm going to say that they're going to score 2 goals in this game. But unfortunately, it's going to be, no, we're going to go 2-2 draw. 2-2 draw. I'm going to not say a loss. The MLS losing streak ends in Orlando.
I think there are 2 ways this match can go. Either Nashville scores 5 or Nashville scores once. I'm gonna guess once, just because.
Oh, come on.
Come on. But I'll leave 5. The 5 for Steven.
Steven.
I'll leave that. I think it's gonna be 1-0 Nashville SC from a penalty. And probably the worst match you've seen in your life, but the losing streak will be over, I think. And for me, just follow me at Valer Shabil on all socials. I'm there. I'm covering the team a lot.
I am here for the chaotic BJ Callaghan era. We all talked about we hated games being 0-0 draws. Let's see how we appreciate a 4-4 draw, because that's what's going to happen on Saturday. 4-4 draw, Sam Surridge hat trick, and a goal from Walker Zimmerman off a corner. And yeah, 4-4 draw. At PH Stephen HD on my stuff as well. Y'all, thank you so much for listening to the show. Appreciate it. We'll be back, of course, next week to talk about that Orlando match and probably talk about a lot more, because with this team, you never know. There's going to be so much to talk about. So thank you all again so much. Really appreciate it. And we will see you next week.